Discover the incredible journey, how one man seeking refuge found 3 unexpected Apache wives. Jake's heart raced as he stared at the pink slip, realizing it was more than just paper. It was a carving of his dreams into the void. After years as a corporate attorney in Houston, his identity had been tethered to that office, to those sterile conference rooms where he defined himself through successes and accolades. Now, unemployment stalked him like a wolf, and the nagging dread of inadequacy coiled tightly in his chest. How could he face friends and family? The thought of pitying looks made sweat bead on his forehead. A once certain future unraveled into a cacophony of anxiety and doubts. In the days that followed, Jake packed his bags and hit the road, seeking refuge from the barrage of unanswered calls and unfiltered questions from well-meaning acquaintances. He drove, crossing the monotonous Texas landscape into New Mexico, where the horizon opened up before him like a blank canvas, full of potential yet terrifying in its emptiness. He felt a bizarre blend of exhilaration and guilt. Could he truly run from his troubles? Shouldn't he be searching for a new job? Yet the ghost of his past tenacity faded with every mile, and he longed for clarity among desolation. As the road twisted, in the distance, colors flared against the muted browns and blues of earth and sky. Captivated, Jake turned off the highway and followed a bumpy dirt road leading to a small Apache reservation. The vibrant crafts at the roadside stalls fluttered like flags, heralding a life rich with stories and endurance. The smell of wood smoke enveloped him, contrasting sharply with the antiseptic scent of his law office. Here, the placidity stirred something within him. A longing for connection, for purpose deeper than bank accounts and titles. Jake was greeted by the community with smiles like sunshine. He mingled among the people, but his heart was heavy, burdened by his thoughts. Questions nagged at him. What did he have to offer? He listened to their tales, absorbing strength from Laura, Mia, and Sarah. Laura's face bore the lines of exhaustion, juggling life as a single mother. Mia's hands trembled as she painted, torn between her passion and crippling doubt. Sarah spoke fiercely of her struggles against racial bias, and each story cracked his defenses open wider. Inspiration ignited a flicker within him, but beneath lay a festering doubt, echoing that he could never measure up to their resilience. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amid laughter and shared meals, something shifted in Jake, yet the storyline of his involvement took a darker turn. Whispers of an imminent threat to their land reverberated through the community. A looming decision weighed heavily on him. Could he stand up for them? Would he give up his easy life for a cause he barely understood, steeped in privilege? Every laugh and warm glance suddenly felt loaded, a fragile thread pulling at his heartstrings as he wrestled with the looming moral dilemma. This connection, this newfound family, made him question whether he was ready to dive into this chaos or retreat back to the safety of his old life. As Jake's body tensed with the pressure of conflicting desires, anguish flooded his mind. To stand or to flee? These women opened doors he didn't know existed, but every moment felt like a pivotal choice, one that could shatter the delicate bond he was forming. The weight of indecision loomed, because in confronting these challenges, he might also uncover the depths of his own vulnerabilities. Would he rise with them, or hide behind the remnants of a life that no longer held him? The days turned into weeks, and the vibrant pulse of the Apache reservation began to seep into Jake's heart, yet his internal turmoil remained. Shadows of doubt continued to dance in his mind, each moment weighted by the fear of inadequacy. He found himself torn between the comfort of his former life and the raw authenticity of this new world. The temptation to retreat gnawed at him, yet each time he saw Laura, Mia, and Sarah share their hopes and fears, he sensed a deeper truth rising within him. Jake often accompanied them on small errands into neighboring towns, providing a rare glimpse into their lives beyond the reservation. On one such trip, he observed an elderly man being harassed by a group of teenagers for selling crafts. The anger inside him flared, An unsettling impulse surged. He stepped forward, his voice loud and steady as he confronted the group. "What's wrong with you? Let him live his life." The teenagers froze, caught off guard by his presence. As they retreated, Jake felt an unfamiliar sense of empowerment. He could intervene, he could act. It dawned on him that this was the first time in years he truly felt alive, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of boardrooms where he had argued cases with calculated precision and dispassion. The gratitude in the old man's eyes ignited a flicker of purpose within Jake, and he started volunteering to help the Apache community with legal affairs and negotiations. He spent hours at a local school, teaching children the fundamentals of law, hoping to equip them with knowledge that had always seemed like a shield in his own life. Every time he shared practical wisdom, he felt a piece of his former self melting away, replaced by a burgeoning confidence he had thought long lost. But with each leading moment came the crash of reality. There were still whispers of the impending threat to their land, and the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him. What could he do? He lacked the cultural familiarity and bonds forged over generations. The community seemed to be bracing for a fight, and Jake felt the urge to take action escalate. If he truly wanted to be part of this newfound family, he needed to immerse himself fully, not as an outsider offering sympathy, but as a catalyst for change. One evening, surrounded by the 3 women he had come to admire, he revealed his thoughts. "I want to help, but I don't know how." Their eyes reflected both understanding and uncertainty. "You have skills we need," Sarah said quietly, leaving Jake to grapple with the implication of her words. He had always viewed his legal career as mere service to the highest bidder. Now it could become a formidable tool for the empowerment of this community. As doubt spiraled, glimpses of determination fought back against fear. In this fragile alliance, Jake began a journey of self-discovery, confronting the ghosts of his privilege while forging new relationships. Could a well-versed attorney really bridge the divide between his past and this community's struggles? With each decision he made, he embraced the chaos, leaning into the complexity of the lives intertwined with his. The flickering doubts remained, entwined with bursts of growing conviction. But it was during a heated community meeting, as tensions flared and voices rose, that Jake realized it was time to harness that conviction. What would it take to stand fully in this chaotic struggle? And could the skills he had honed in corporate warfare be weaponized for the greater good? The weight of an imminent decision loomed large. As he glanced at the women whose stories now intertwined with his, he had to confront the truth. The time had come to face not only the enemies of their land, but the enemy within himself. Would he choose to embrace the tumult of this new purpose? Or would he let his fears pull him back into the shadows of his former life? As the community meeting faltered and Jake felt the oppressive weight of uncertainty pressing down on him, a decision began to crystallize in his mind. Could he not only contribute but also lead? The thought electrified his being and terrified him in equal measure. That evening, after the meeting ended in disarray, Jake wandered to the edge of the reservation, the cool night air brushing against his skin. Glancing up at the stars scattered across the vast desert sky, he sought solace in their silence, trying to calm the storm of confusion inside. Yet the stars offered no answers, only a symbol of the countless possibilities shimmering just out of reach. His thoughts swirled around Laura, Mia, and Sarah, their lives intertwined with the fate of the land that now felt like a part of him. They depended on him more than he realized, not as a savior, but as a partner navigating the treacherous waters of activism. The realization struck him. He had spent years dodging responsibility, and now, when it mattered most, could he dare to embrace it? Jake delivered a deep, shaky breath, documenting this shift not only as a revelation but as an unshakable truth that had been too long buried beneath layers of self-doubt. The fear of failure was still a potent adversary, but perhaps it could be redirected into something constructive, a tool for fuel rather than failure. The next morning neither sent him a reminder that the threats looming over the land were still urgent. Jake sought an audience with the tribal council, prepared with research on their land rights and legal precedents. The moment he was granted a seat at the table felt electrifying, a first step towards claiming his role not just as a volunteer, but as an ally who could articulate their struggles. However, to humanize their fight, he realized he must delve deeper into their stories and experiences. Days turned into weeks again as he immersed himself into the Apache culture, learning, listening, and most importantly, understanding. With every conversation overheard and every story shared, Jake pulled apart the misconceptions he held. It became apparent that the fight for their land was not merely a matter of legalities, but a pulsing heart of history that demanded respect. At the same time, visions of the corporate world began to drift hazily in the rearview mirror of his mind, but old habits die hard. As he crafted his pitch for the council, internal voices echoed the lessons learned in boardrooms. Confidence surging, he crafted a compelling argument that melded legal defense with cultural reverence. It was a strategy grounded in empathy rather than exploitation, his long-awaited realization of the balance he needed to strike. He presented his ideas for the upcoming tribal meeting, speaking not just about law, but about legacy and honor. As each word escaped his lips, he felt his fears retreat, making room for burgeoning pride. It wasn't just about what he could do, it was about how they could do it together. The applause from the council, albeit restrained, felt like a powerful affirmation. Yet a sense of vulnerability washed over him as he glanced at Laura, Mia, and Sarah. Had he truly bridged the gap between their worlds? Or was he still just a temporary fixture in their lives? With the next community meeting fast approaching, the stakes had risen. Jake prepared for his next move, knowing he must confront not only external parties, but also the lingering doubt residing in his heart. If he were to succeed, he had to confront the next enemy, those who would undermine the work he had begun, those who viewed genuine change as a threat. He returned to the reservation that evening filled with a potent cocktail of ambition and anxiety. The winds whipped through the sagebrush, carrying the weight of the decisions yet to come. Little did he know, the true test of his resolve would manifest sooner than he anticipated, culminating in a showdown that would demand the very essence of who he had become. Would he have the courage to face these new adversaries? And more importantly, would his commitment to the Apache's cause withstand the challenges ahead? The air was stale in Jake's small office as he sat at his desk, papers scattered around him. They chronicled weeks of preparation, research documents meticulously organized, notes on human stories etched into his mind. Each page reflected his growing commitment, but standing at the precipice of this newfound role felt like a shackle weighing him down. He stared at the pages, words merging into an indecipherable blur as doubt clawed at his confidence. His resolve flickered waveringly like a candle in the wind. As the date of the community meeting approached, a gnawing anxiety gripped his insides. This moment felt consequential. Yet, he couldn't shake the image of failure. Would his ideas resonate, or would he be dismissed as just another outsider trying to dictate terms? The thought chilled him, drawing forth memories of his corporate life where acceptance hinged on precision and overcalculation. The contrast was stark, and he battled against the urge to retreat into that safe, uninspired world. That evening, Jake took a long walk through the reservation, grounding himself in the warm glow of the setting sun. He paused at a quiet spot where he had often found solace, the desert spreading out before him like a canvas waiting to be painted. Here, he reflected on what it truly meant to become an ally. Each story he had heard echoed in his head. Stories filled with loss, resilience, and the fierce embrace of identity. Every tale deepened his understanding, but also amplified his fear of inadequacy. Returning home, he faced his reflection in the mirror, pondering whether he genuinely belonged in this fight. You can't just enter their world without fully committing, part of his mind urged. This internal dialogue revealed more than his insecurities. It signaled a profound realization. Jake wasn't merely crafting theories or strategies. He was entwined with the lives of Laura, Mia, Sarah, and countless others whose choices and freedoms hung precariously in the balance. The night before the meeting, he hardly slept. Ideas morphed and twisted, giving birth to fresh fears. He envisioned the council members meeting him with skepticism, their eyes piercing through his insecurities. What if their faces bore only scorn? The terror wrapped around him, suffocating his intentions. Yet beneath that fear, there was a flicker of determination, a flame kindled by his deepening connections. By dawn, Jake was in tune with his thoughts. He needed to approach this moment not as a leader, but as a bearer of shared purpose. His notes became crisp and clear. He abandoned the jargon of legalese that once dominated his vocabulary. Instead, he focused on heart, a narrative that spoke of hope and solidarity rather than authority. As he walked to the tribal council chamber, each step resonated with a weight of responsibility he had never felt before. Standing at the entrance, he paused, heart racing. Voices echoed inside. Apprehension kicked. The door swung open, revealing the council, their faces a tapestry of intrigue and skepticism. He took a deep breath, feeling the community's history and struggles weave through him. But just as he gathered courage to step forward, a figure approached him from behind, an unexpected reminder of the wounds festering beneath the surface. It was a rival activist, one who had often dismissed Jake's efforts as naive, and now stood poised to undermine everything he had fought for. The time had come to face his greatest challenge yet, one that would reveal whether he could protect those he had come to support or be consumed by the shadows of doubt. Jake clenched his fists. Would this confrontation shatter his newfound resolve, or would he rise to defend not only his ideas, but those depending upon him? The uncertainty loomed heavy as the meeting commenced, and all eyes turned toward him. Jake felt the heat of the room around him, the weight of scrutiny hanging thick in the air. It flooded his mind with memories of past presentations, each one a carefully crafted performance where he projected confidence, suppressing any self-doubt that threatened to unravel his polished facade. But this was different. The stakes were more than his reputation. They directly impacted lives entwined with his own, and the thought left him breathless. The rival activist leaned closer, arms crossed, a smirk resting on his lips. Ready to learn what real activism looks like, Jake? The words dripped with mockery, and Jake could feel the shadows of his insecurities clawing back into consciousness. An instinctual anger pulsed inside him, compelling him to respond. He swallowed hard, choosing silence over retaliation. The room's energy seemed to shift, eyes flicking between the rival and him. Jake's heart raced as he forced himself to reclaim that focus, steeling himself against the tide of doubt threatening to cascade over him. Was it really self-doubt, if he was willing to admit vulnerability, to embrace the uncomfortable truth of his uncertainties? A curtain of noise cascaded over the room as Jake cleared his throat, cutting through the tension like a knife. Thank you all for gathering today. I recognize that there are many concerns about my involvement. I'm here not just to speak, but to listen, to be an active participant in conversations that matter. His voice was steadier than he felt. The council members sat in silence, their expressions revealing little. The rival's smirk faded slightly, replaced by a serious demeanor that suggested he was reassessing Jake. Perhaps he sensed this was a different kind of presentation, the one where Jake was more present than ever, where his journey and the challenges faced by the community illuminated each word. He pushed beyond the initial nerves, launching into the stories that had inspired his project, the voices he had committed to uplift. The council's intrigue grew, and as he spoke about Laura, Mia, Sarah, he saw flickers of recognition wash over their faces. Each mention tied back to something deeper than statistics or slogans. It was heart, interwoven with the reality of life on the reservation. The rival activist shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable yet attempting to maintain his facade. Jake noticed the way his tension transformed into something almost defensive, a realization dawning upon the others present. Perhaps Jake's approach was carving out space for empathy, where before there had only been skepticism. But then the moment shifted. A council member, an elder with eyes that seemed to see right through him, spoke up. So Jake, what assurance do we have that you won't turn and walk away once the applause dies down? What makes you more invested than any other strategist with grand ideas? The question cut deep. The world Jake had left behind in corporate life had prepared him to offer solutions and strategies, but it had never pushed him to confront accountability to such an unyielding degree. His mind raced, calling him back to those moments of vulnerability he had teased out of the stories he had heard. They had fostered a bond far stronger than any transactional connection he had ever felt. Because, he paused, heart thudding, words curving with raw honesty, this journey has become personal for me. I committed to understanding, to not simply floating above but to drown in the depth of these stories. I want to be part of the lives that are interconnected with these struggles. In that single sentence, Jake glimpsed his own transformation. It was no longer merely activism, it was a lifelong commitment. he could feel it ignite a flicker of trust among the council members. Yet before he could dwell into the reservoir of courage he felt building within him, the rival activist interjected, relentlessly prodding at the very foundation of Jake's sincerity. And if they don't want you there, if they say no, is your commitment just a passing phase? The eyes shifted back to Jake, scrutiny sharpening as the weight of the inquiry settled like lead upon his shoulders. That singular question hung uncomfortably between them, urging him to confront an unsettling possibility. As tension clung to the air, an unsettling question loomed within him. Was he bold enough to stand firm against rejection to uphold the honor of those he had come to support? Would he dismantle the shackles of his doubt even if the community denied him? The chamber felt smaller, suffocating yet electrifying. Every heartbeat amplified the critical moment that was upon him. This encounter, this confrontation, could become a catalyst, a turning point not just for him but for their collective journey. A decision converged amid the tension, but the ramifications of such a leap echoed threateningly. Would he allow doubt to dictate his next steps, or would this be the defining moment where he fortified what had been awakened within him? As the council leaned in, anticipation palpable, Jake understood a truth. The moment had arrived for his resolve to be tested. If he faltered now, it could mean succumbing to everything he feared. But if he succeeded? It opened a path he had never envisioned, guiding him closer to his true self. The question lingered as he prepared for his response, an assertion that could change everything. Would he rise or fall in the crucible of scrutiny before him? The air in the room felt electric as Jake prepared for the most significant response of his life. Doubt wrestled within him, gnawing at his resolve. What if he was simply deluding himself into believing he was ready to make a difference? What if they saw right through his bravado, recognized the truth he had tried so hard to ignore, that deep down he was still the same man uncertain of his worth? He straightened his back, forcing his gaze to sweep over the council. The elder was still watching him intently, a challenging expression dancing in his eyes. This wasn't just about what Jake wanted anymore. It was about restoring faith, both in himself and in the people he aimed to serve. If they say no, he began, his voice starkly personal, then that's a challenge I have to accept. I can't control their response, but I can choose how I react. I want to earn their trust by standing with them when it's hard, especially when it's hard. A strong sense of purpose washed over him. He had spent too long drifting between roles, caught in a cycle of corporate ambition that fed more obsession than fulfillment. Here, he felt the clarity that had eluded him for years. This wasn't about accolades or applause, it was about making tangible impacts. Challenging silence blanketed the room. The rival activist had leaned back, momentarily taken aback. Jake took the opportunity to address the skepticism head-on. Activism isn't just a trendy title or worse, a springboard to personal glory, he asserted, words steadying with each new breath. It's listening, understanding, and being willing to accept rejection. Every story I hear, every no I encounter, only strengthens my resolve. This isn't just a project, it's my commitment to the change that begins with empathy. Jake could sense the room's energy transforming. The council members' expressions shifted from disapproval to begrudging respect. Perhaps vulnerability wasn't a weakness. Perhaps it was a bridge to genuine connection, one he hadn't fully appreciated until now. Inwardly, he acknowledged the leap he had taken. Gone were the days of feeling like a puppet on corporate strings, moving according to external metrics of success. Here, he was grounded by the real stakes, the lives he wanted to uplift. Yet a flicker of uncertainty remained lodged in his chest. Could he withstand the trials ahead, especially in the face of rejection? The elder's voice cut through his racing thoughts again. You claim to want to connect with our lives. We'll not open our doors easily, Jake. It's a privilege to walk alongside our truths. Jake nodded, suppressing the impulse to defend himself further. Instead, he leaned into the discomfort. I understand this isn't a privilege given lightly, and I don't wish to squander your trust. I'm here, right now, to learn from you, not to lead blindly. As he spoke, Jake began to feel cracks in his old persona shifting. This authenticity, this willingness to show up without guarantees, went beyond simply presenting himself. It was a promise to evolve, to dig deeper into the stories that shaped each individual he aimed to support. The idea thrilled him and terrified him in equal measure. Then something unexpected happened. The elder shifted, a subtle smile breaking the seriousness of his demeanor. Perhaps there might be something to your words after all. The rival activist shifted again, unwilling to accept the possibility that Jake was making strides in winning the council's dialogue. Jake felt a swell of hope, but it was undercut by a profound understanding. The journey was just beginning, both for him and those whose lives he intertwined with. What would it mean to forge bonds in a community rife with skepticism? And was he truly willing to remain committed even when the path darkened? Motivated by curiosity and a burgeoning bond, Jake realized he needed to connect deeply and earnestly, but the question remained. How could he continue to grow in a space that could just as easily reject him? In seeking acceptance, he found a new depth to his personal development, one where every interaction was a chance to explore vulnerability further. A shadow crept back into the forefront of his mind, a lingering worry that perhaps he would face rejection more often than acceptance on this journey. But he welcomed the tension. It was fertile ground for growth, a starting point for genuine evolution. As he made eye contact with the elder once more, a new thought broke through. What do I truly want to embody in this role? In that question lay a revelation that propelled him forward into the realm of uncomfortable truths. The council awaited his next step, but Jake felt the stakes heightening. Could he navigate this evolving landscape with integrity while remaining authentically himself? As anticipation hung in the air, he sensed this was his defining moment, not merely as an activist, but as a person. All eyes remained fixed on him, and the weight of potential decisions loomed. He could feel the pressure coiling like a spring. How would he choose to respond? Would he take that leap, or would fear lead him to retreat? With a surge of determination swelling his chest, Jake knew now was the time to forge ahead, come what may. But little did he know, the true challenge was yet to unfold before him in ways he could never anticipate. Jake felt the weight of the council's gaze as he stood at the precipice of a life-altering moment. The elder's expression hinted at a cautious willingness to listen, leaving Jake to grapple with the significance of what lay before him. Trust was not something to be easily gained, especially in a world rife with skepticism and pain. In this charged atmosphere, uncertainty danced on the edges of his mind, a constant reminder of his past failures. Years spent in boardrooms, racking up accolades and status, felt meaningless now in the face of real human connection. He had learned to thrive on recognition, but recognition could not sustain him here. "I want to be a partner in your struggle," he declared, the phrase rolling from his tongue as if it held magic. "But partnerships require vulnerabilities from both sides. I can't expect your trust without first being honest about my intentions, my past, and how I truly want to help." Every word seemed to strip away the layers he had worn, revealing a man who was learning that authenticity bore more weight than mere rhetoric. It was a tiny act of courage, but within it lay deeper truths he had yet to unearth within himself. The council's collective apprehension shifted slightly, and Jake felt the air stir with possibility. Yet, with each success, shadows lingered. He could feel iciness emanating from the rival activist, her skepticism a constant. She leaned forward, crossing her arms, as if daring him to prove his worth. Her challenge was not just personal, it felt rooted in a larger narrative. Did she suspect him of ulterior motives? Was she afraid he would take the very spotlight she fought hard to claim? "Your empathic approach is commendable, Jake, but you must understand, actions speak louder than words," she interjected sharply. "We've seen too many like you come and go. You say you want to learn, but are you truly ready for the painstaking work it takes to build relationships in this climate?" Jake felt the coldness settle into his bones. The trust he sought was thrice as rewarding when it was earned, but perhaps more elusive than he initially perceived. Could he turn the tides of her doubt? It would take more than good intentions. "I understand that my past may cast a shadow, but you have an opportunity here to shift the narrative," he replied, meeting her gaze with newfound fierceness. "My sincerity is not up for debate. It's something I must prove once our paths share purpose." The room fell silent as council members processed his words. Jake could hear a clock ticking nearby, marking each second of this pivotal confrontation. how his heart raced. His new path, illuminated and yet intimidating, stood before him as an invitation to prove his commitment, to push aside his own expectations. In truth, he was scared. Fear loomed like a specter, whispering doubts in his ear. What if he failed to match the depth of their stories? What if the vulnerability he sought to embody only left him exposed? Uncertainty lingered, but now it churned as a backdrop for potential growth. "I won't shy away from the effort needed," Jake professed, wavering but resolute. "Every no I encounter will be an insight into your truths." The room shifted again. Eyes darted between him and the elder, who appeared to weigh his statement carefully. Could he maintain presence despite the disquiet within? This encounter was unlike anything he had faced professionally. It revealed two stark realities. His fight to find acceptance mirrored a deeper quest for identity, a weaving together of purpose and self-worth. To abandon this mission now would be to deny not only himself but the legacy of resilience that the council represented. Jake understood that personal growth demanded a reckoning with the mess he carried, the failures, the misguided ambition, and the lack of genuine connection. Every step forward meant unraveling parts of himself he'd rather keep hidden. And suddenly, quietly cutting through the tension, the elder leaned forward again. "If you truly wish to walk among our lives, you must first accept the consequences of that choice." His voice resonated with authority, yet a flicker of something else, a glimmer of approval. Jake's mind raced. What consequences awaited him? He wanted to ask, to delve into the specifics, to prepare for the inevitable trials he would surely face. Yet he also sensed this was the moment to simply embrace the uncertainty ahead. "Show us," the elder urged, his expression resolute. "Then we may see you walk among us." As Jake absorbed this pivotal moment, his core vibrated with conviction, stripping away distractions. Now was the moment to act, not just to speak. He took a deep breath, bracing himself for a journey fraught with unexpected challenges, all while nurturing the fading whisper of his own courage. Each heartbeat echoed with the weight of consequences, as Jake contemplated the audacity of seeking refuge, not just within this council, but within himself. Only time would tell if he was ready for what came next. As he stepped forward, what awaited him loomed like shadows growing longer in the twilight. Would he be willing to confront the demons he'd stacked inside? And what would that mean for his evolving identity in unfamiliar, uncharted territory? Jake stepped forward, the tension in the room palpable beneath the flickering candlelight. The council members shifted slightly, their collective focus now razor-sharp. He felt his heartbeat quicken as the weight of their observations pressed down on him. Transformation awaited, but only if he was willing to face the truths lying just beneath the surface of his ambition. This was no longer a mere exchange of words. It was a crucible of intention and action. Jake could feel the eyes of the rival activist boring into him, dissecting his every movement. Her presence intensified the stakes, amplifying his insecurities. He took a breath, grounding himself in the moment, consciously training his mind to quiet the chorus of self-doubt. "Trust is a living thing," he began, his voice steady yet filled with urgency. "It grows with time and effort. I can't demand it, but I will earn it." Vulnerability was a foreign concept to him, yet he knew relinquishing control was part of this journey. Every no he encountered would teach him, but more importantly, it would deepen his connection to their lived experiences. To maintain focus, he drew from the memories of past mistakes, boardroom deals made with logic but lacking compassion. The accolades he had once pursued seemed hollow in contrast to the authenticity he sought now. He refused to let the shadows of his history dictate the potential he had to create meaningful relationships here. This moment was a turning point where ambition met humility. "Prove it then," the rival activist challenged, her skepticism unwavering. "We'll give you tasks that reflect our reality. Complete them, and perhaps we'll see your resolve." A spark ignited inside him at her words. This was an opportunity, a tangible path to reshape his narrative. "I accept," he replied, exhilaration coursing through him. The challenges ahead might stretch him, but they offered a chance to dig deeper than surface-level interactions. He envisioned the tasks as stepping stones, each one a way to earn not just their trust, but also to understand the fabric of their lives. They began to discuss the first task. It revolved around helping a struggling local business, a small shop that had become a lifeline in the community. Immediately, Jake began to map out strategies in his mind, leveraging his business acumen to uncover methods of sustainable growth. But he quickly realized that this wasn't merely about applying his conventional expertise, it required an understanding of the unique cultural context. "Tell me about your needs," he urged, channeling a genuine intent to listen. The council spoke of barriers, economic downturns, a changing market, and the emotional weight of losing a long-standing business in the community. Jake sensed layers of complexity in their stories, nuances he had never considered as a suit in a corporate environment. Each snippet of information peeled back the curtain on their realities, laying bare both their fears and resilience. As the discussion unfolded, the rival activist watched him carefully, her arms slowly uncrossing. There was a hint of curiosity in her demeanor, an indication that perhaps she was starting to see the merits of his determination. But doubt crept in again, whispering insidious messages. Was he merely an outsider trying to impose his methods on a challenge deeply embedded in their culture? He fought against the impulse to retract, reminding himself that he wasn't there to dictate solutions. He was there to collaborate, to learn, and to help foster voices that deserved to be heard. Jake took a moment to process the flood of information. He had stepped into uncharted waters, leading himself into situations far beyond his comfort zone. The council members' stories were intertwined with his emerging commitment to vulnerability. Each shared experience ignited his resolve further. With a newfound clarity, Jake proposed an idea he hadn't fully formed until now. What if we host an open forum at the shop, a place to gather the community, share stories, and explore collaborative solutions? The suggestion hung there, suspended in the room. Everyone's gaze was fixed on him, and he felt the gravity of their expectations weigh heavily once more. The elder pondered, then nodded slowly. "In that case, it's a start. But remember, words without action are meaningless, Jake." His heart surged with purpose as he promised to dive into this endeavor wholeheartedly. He would meet their expectations, but the victory lay not in the task's completion, but in navigating what it revealed about himself. Yet he was aware that moving forward would mean confronting pervasive biases and unearthed fears. As the meeting drew to a close, he left determined but apprehensive, knowing the next steps were fraught with challenges, both external and internal. Each encounter would be a transformative rite of passage. As he stepped outside, the dusk sky bore witness to his resolve, and he inhaled deeply, committing to embrace the lessons each hurdle would unveil. But the unrest inside him couldn't quiet completely. What past failures awaited him in the shadows, lingering as he sought to redeem himself? The truth beckoned, a truth he knew he would have to face sooner or later, and it loomed on the horizon. As Jake stepped into the cool evening air, he grappled with the weight of the council's expectations. The open forum idea had sparked enthusiasm, yet a gnawing uncertainty lay beneath the surface. Would his approach resonate with the community, or was he simply imposing an outsider's agenda? The answers remained elusive, taunting him as he walked toward the shop that would be the stage for his first task. The shop's exterior was unassuming, yet it buzzed with life. A small group of regulars chatted animatedly outside, their laughter mingling with the faint sound of music. Jake's pulse quickened, and he felt a swipe of vulnerability wash over him. He was about to step into a space that was not his own, a space that held memories and long-standing relationships built over years. This was no boardroom, these were real lives. He took a deep breath, recalling the personal stories shared earlier. Each narrative etched itself into his mind, reminding him of the responsibility he carried. Not only did he need to earn their trust, but he also needed to honor the very culture and community dynamics that shaped their existence. With every stride toward the door, self-doubt wrestled for dominance, but he pushed it aside, reminding himself that this was not just about him. Inside the shop, the warm glow of the lights enveloped him, making the space feel welcoming yet daunting. He scanned the room, noting the familiar faces from the earlier discussion, as well as a few who seemed hesitant to engage. He offered a tentative smile, one that he hoped communicated openness. As he approached the center table where informal discussions often took place, he cleared his throat, adrenaline stirring within him. "Thank you all for being here," he started, his voice trembling slightly before firming. "I know many of you have been affected in ways I can't fully understand. I want to create a space where we can discuss those experiences." He paused, gauging their reactions. Most nodded, but a few exchanged wary glances. The rival activist stood just a short distance away, arms crossed, her expression inscrutable. Jake launched into an explanation of the forum concept, encouraging feedback and input. He saw the community begin to come alive, voices emerging from the shadows of uncertainty. The initial hesitance began to melt as they shared their grievances, hopes and dreams that filled the shop, a space more than just a business, but a gathering point for stories and connection. Then in the midst of the discussion, he noticed an older gentleman in the corner, his brow furrowed in contemplation. Jake felt the urge to include him, remembering how silence could be a shield for those less outspoken. "Sir, would you like to share something?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle. To his surprise, the man shifted in his chair, eyes glistening as he began to speak. "Back in my day, this place was bustling. Everyone knew each other's names. Now, it feels like we're losing a part of ourselves." His voice cracked, resonating with collective pain that reverberated through the room. Jake listened with intent, realizing that this was a pivotal moment, his role near the flame of their shared vulnerability. It wasn't just about proposing solutions, but embodying empathy. He sought deeper connections, feeling the layers of understanding settle like dust on old floorboards. As the evening progressed, he felt moments where hope flickered against the weight of their stories. He forged ties through small gestures, offering suggestions that were rooted in their desires rather than his own plans. With each interaction, doubt transformed into determination, illuminating a path forward, yet the lingering specter of his own inadequacies nagged at him. Was he truly equipped to facilitate this necessary change? The thought of letting them down haunted him, like an unseen barrier standing against his ambitions. As he engaged with the community, he wrestled with the fear of failure looming just outside the bright glow of the shop. At the end of the evening, conversations took on a hopeful hue, and as people began to leave, Jake felt a surge of purpose. The forum had been a successful start, but the road ahead was still surfacing obstacles that would test him at every turn. Before the last patrons departed, he caught the rival activist's gaze. The skepticism that had initially clouded her features seemed to soften, if only slightly. But beneath that shift lay an unspoken challenge. "Next time," she said quietly, "let's see if you can turn that enthusiasm into action. Words are easy. It's the follow-through that matters." Jake nodded, acknowledging her challenge as a fire ignited within him once more. He would not only prove himself to the council, but also to himself. This journey was a litmus test of his very essence. Outside, the stars glimmered against the night sky, a universe of possibilities lingering in the air. Yet, uncertainty still loomed over him like a thick fog. What hidden aspects of his past would emerge from the depths as he continued navigating this transformative space? Jake took a deep breath, ready to step forward into the evolving challenges ahead, aware that the real journey was just beginning, and soon he might have to confront the ghosts of his failed past. Weeks passed, and Jake stood at the edge of a new reality, reflecting on how far he had traversed since stepping into the Apache community. The initial trepidations of stepping out of a life defined by accomplishments that felt hollow had bitten the dust. Instead, he had found purpose, passion, and a growing sense of belonging that was both empowering and humbling. The energy of the community forum had blossomed into more organized efforts. Together, they had launched initiatives aimed at revitalizing the local shop and empowering the residents. Jake had watched, empowered yet grounded, as the townsfolk began to regain their confidence, sharing insights that had been lost in silence for too long. He was no longer just an outsider, he was a bridge, a collaborator, someone who served the stories that mattered. During a recent meeting, the tribal council, bolstered by the momentum they had been building, agreed to expand discussions around land rights and upcoming legislative challenges. The elder turned to Jake, nodding with gratitude. "You've helped foster a space where we can find our voice, but words must lead to actions," he said, his eyes piercing yet filled with warmth. Jake stood in that moment, a newfound confidence surging within him. He had observed firsthand the transformative power that comes when people harness their collective strength. But more than that, he had proven to himself that he could be part of that movement. No longer did he feel the weight of anxiety or self-doubt. "Let's take the next step together," he proposed, his voice resolute. "We need a collective strategy, not just to defend our rights, but to reclaim our narrative." The council nodded, and he saw a flicker of approval from the rival activist, whose skepticism had shifted toward cautious admiration. Through months of tireless work, Jake had become a skilled facilitator, empowering individuals to take charge of their own fates. The town had rallied around numerous initiatives, all of which he had rallied for, yet it was not accolades he sought. It was action that fortified their bonds and fostered resilience amongst them. What had advanced from that fateful first forum was a well-orchestrated coalition, each voice contributing to a narrative that spoke not only of struggle but triumph over adversity. As Jake presented a comprehensive plan for upcoming negotiations regarding their land and cultural rights, he felt the shift from fear to purpose ring true within him. "If the government sees us as individuals divided, it's an easy target for them to dismiss," he challenged, passionately laying out his vision. "But as a united front, we represent the rights, the tales, and the undying spirit of our ancestors." A wave of resonant agreement rippled through the council. Laura, Mia, and Sarah beamed with pride. Each had tapped into their unique strengths, contributing ideas and experiences to the broader vision. Jake realized with great clarity that he had crossed the threshold from seeking refuge into a role that sustained and nourished hope for himself and the community. The weekly meetings filled with strategy discussions became a source of catharsis for Jake. As rough drafts morphed into empowering declarations, he witnessed the women he admired. Laura's unyielding spirit, Mia's artistic insights that embodied culture, Sarah's fierce advocacy for equality, emerging as leaders in their own right. Each interaction affirmed his own growth, no longer tethered to the success of a corporate ladder, rather leaning into the strength of community weaving their destinies together. On the brink of a decisive moment with the government looming ahead, he reflected inwardly. The journey had exposed truths that had long been buried within him. The echoes of doubt that once clouded his identity began to dim, overtaken by a stronger sense of self-worth nurtured by collective experiences. In the heated meeting room on the night before the negotiation, Jake took a moment alone, envisioning the man he had become. No longer just the corporate attorney, but a champion for change, an advocate. Each moment of vulnerability had poured into a reservoir of strength that defined who he was now, a steadfast ally. As the dawn approached, Jake felt an unprecedented peace settle within him. They might face fierce opposition, but he had equipped himself with knowledge and understanding, not just of law, but of hearts intertwined with stories that deserve to be told. As he entered the meeting the next day, he stood alongside the elder and the council, fully embodying the spirit of their cause. "This is our time," he said, voice unwavering, looking towards those who had once seemed like distant shadows in his past. "This is where our journey begins, not only to safeguard land, but to create a future reflective of our resilience." And as they moved through the negotiation with strength and dignity, Jake emerged not just as a facilitator, but as an essential part of the community's continued narrative of empowerment and resilience. Side by side, they would prove that they were positioned not just to survive, but to thrive. Jake had achieved something profound. He had transformed his life and those around him, cultivating not only his understanding of purpose, but also a profound sense of belonging that stretched beyond anything he had known. In achieving recognition as a catalyst for change, he had also reclaimed his identity, rooted firmly in the potent soil of the community he now called home. Each step forward solidified his commitment, revealing that true empowerment is cultivated through vulnerability, collaboration, and decisive action. Enveloped by collective history, they embraced the future together, with Jake ready not to look back but onward, emboldened by the journey. And now is the moment for you. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and sustain more inspiring journeys. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of individual overcoming stories. You need to support the channel right now. Don't wait even one more second.